My new book about stroke recovery is called The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened and is now available for purchase on Amazon. In the book, you will learn about mindset, the second brain in your gut, the little brain in your heart. You'll learn about the benefits and downsides to neuroplasticity, how to get better sleep, the food you should avoid after stroke, the amazing benefits you get from the smallest amount of exercise, what happens when you follow your heart's desires, the amazing positive benefits you get from surrounding yourself with the right people, and how to discover your life's purpose. To get a copy and to learn more, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Recovery After Stroke podcast. This is episode 288, and my guest today is a lady that has had her fair share of challenging life events to overcome, including abuse, child loss, and multiple strokes, and all before the age of 38. Her approach to life and recovery is to be commended, and we can all learn a thing or two about how to carry on with life. Bobbie-Ann Hutchinson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Do you reckon the kids will be quiet and they won't come in and start causing trouble and asking for mum?
Well, they've got a big sister that I've told them anything they need, they go to her. So that's it.
Big sister's responsible. How old is big sister?
They're 16.
Ah, yeah, she should be able to handle everything.
Yeah. Just
Hey,
give them chocolate or something.
just before bed, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Well, it all started in 2020, which was a bit of a crazy year for everybody. I'd had a few health problems prior to it, which is really strange because looking back, I probably was one of the early COVID cases. I had a lot of breathing problems and things like that. I was set to do the Edinburgh Marathon that May. Then obviously everything shut down and things were cancelled. And then it was by the July, the end of end of June into July, I started to develop really bad ear pain, like excruciating, bit like an ice pick almost. So I rang the GPs. Obviously nobody was allowed to see a GP. It was horrendous. Explained my situation, and I was given some ear drops for a suspected ear infection. Come a few days later, I was ringing again because by this time, all the left side of my face was felt like it was crawling with insects and numb. What I found really interesting listening to your podcast and others is the amount of migraines. God, it's late, isn't it? Sufferers that have also gone on to experience stroke. Because I was a big migraine sufferer right from being about 11. You know, when a girl starts to start having periods and things like that, when all that started to, just prior to that really, was when I first had my first migraine and dropped a mug. You know, I had hold of it and I looked to my mum and I said, my hand's gone funny, and dropped a mug, and that was my first ever migraine.
Mm-hmm.
So numbness and things like that was quite common when I had a migraine. It was all those symptoms of stroke kind of thing. But then with this numbness in my face, it was something different. You know, it just wouldn't go away. Whereas migraine, if you have them, you know, you've got like 15 minutes of numbness in it. You can do it by the clock once you've got used to them, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
So then I did ring the GP again, explain that now I had facial numbness, still had all this pain in my ear, and they gave me an appointment to go in to see them, which was was only a few days into July, and she treated me for a cold sore. When you look back, you just think.
What did she
So
treat
she
you
treated me
for?
for a cold sore. I had a healing cold sore on my lip. Um,
Uh-huh.
she asked if anything else had been wrong, and I said, "Oh, I've had a cold sore." So she treated me with some acyclovir for a cold sore, tablet form, and I took them because you trust them and you think, okay, we'll go with that. And to be honest, when I was back at Dr. Google, and Dr. Google did say that the nerve in your face is where the cold sore virus can lay dormant. So I went with it, finished the acyclovir, rang back maybe a week, 10 days later, still numb, um, bumping into things, nausea, um, and desperate to be well because I'm a mum and um, mums can't be poorly. So they say, don't they? And it's true. So I rang back. I think by then she was fed up with me, and she told me I could see her nurse practitioner. So I went to see him, and I was in floods of tears by then because I'd had these breathing issues and with my chest, and then I had like numbness now in my fingertips, and my left foot my toes, they felt almost like they were bound together. Like if you put a rubber band around your fingers, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel like that sort of sensation. And he was lovely, and he referred me on to rheumatology, um, and gave me some codeine. He was lovely, but it wasn't the right thing. Um, and this went on for a few months actually, and then by the October, and nothing was getting any better. I did put a complaint into my GP and just said, I think this I had so I listed my neurological symptoms within my email. I had a daughter that at age 5 died of a brain tumor, so I was fully aware of, and I suffered migraine, so I knew what was with my head and what was, like a normal niggle. Um, and I moved GP because I couldn't go on like that. My new GP sent me for MRIs of my head and neck, but because it was COVID, these scans didn't take place till the January of 21. So by then I'd been 6 months with all these symptoms, and the we're coming up to like 3 years of me getting my diagnosis. I had these scans, and I didn't get the results back for a couple of weeks, and it was just by chance really because I'd gone to the doctors to do some physio for my chest, for the pains and that I was suffering. And he did a neurological assessment, the physio, and he asked if they'd scanned the whole of my spine or just my neck. And I was like, no, just my neck. But the results of the scan weren't on file for him to look for them. So his response was he was going to chase up my scans that afternoon. So I came home. That morning, I dropped my husband off for, he was having knee surgery. So I was going about my life normal, driving, cooking, everything. Although things would go wrong, didn't crash her out, but and I was blaming it on medication that I'd been given, thinking, oh, the pregabaline's making me feel a bit dizzy, or you just, I knew there was something, and part of me was thinking I had MS. because Dr. Google was the only person that would listen. Um, it's true, isn't it? So I got home after my appointment. Kids come home, made tea, and I got a phone call from my GP. With these was the words. Do you want me to go through everything, or do you just want me to get straight to the point? I was like, I want to, just want to know. And he hit me with, your scans show you've had multiple strokes in your cerebellum. You can't drive from this moment. It was like my life just got switched off. And I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking, it's all going in this ear, and then this side I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How do I get my daughter to preschool? Everything. Because I live in a village, so I don't live. The nearest supermarket's like 8-10 miles. There's no shop in the village, like everything that you need is a drive away. So I was like, okay. And he explained that they didn't know what was causing it. So then my head feels like a ticking time bomb because these things are happening and I've not got any idea why or how to prevent it. So the following day, when I was meant to pick Dean up, I couldn't. He was brought home by my parents, and then I received a phone call from a stroke consultant telling me I needed to ring 999. And after 6 months of feeling like you're a pain in someone's backside, I went, I can get somebody to drive me. I can get a lift. He was like, this is a medical emergency. Ring 999 for an ambulance. So I did. But before that, I was like, oh gosh, I didn't want to frighten my children because their dad had just come home with his knee bound up. We were already in the middle of a pandemic. And my now 16-year-old, I was like, do you want to bake? So she was making cookies. My little ones were just watching, I don't know, Peppa Pig or something like that. Why I made this phone call. And then paramedics came, but I wasn't your typical laid on the floor stroke that's rung 999. I answered the door. It's like, coming in. They were a bit hesitant then to take me because I looked like I was normal. And my doctor rang while they were there and was like, no, this lady needs taken. So off I went. And I spent 9 days in hospital. That was strange because we were into winter lockdown here in the UK. And everybody was old. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. They were just older and they looked poorly and I didn't.
That,
And I didn't want to be an inconvenience, like, and I'd felt like an inconvenience for 6 months. So that's why I felt that way. And I felt like almost like a fraud.
yeah, I
Do you know
get
what
it.
I mean?
I do because
Yeah.
when I went to hospital the first time, I couldn't feel my left side, but that wasn't visible to anybody. And I was walking around. I was meeting people in a cafe that were coming to visit me. Um, I was completely functional, and they've got
Yeah.
scans that show a bleed on the brain, and that doesn't match the person. And it's like something weird is going on here, and this guy shouldn't be up and about. And they were constantly calling me back to my ward, to my bed, and people were visiting me, and they were kind of brushing it off as, oh, you know, you'll be right, everything's fine.
You
No,
look fine. Yeah.
yeah, no problem. And it it is a little difficult because even the most well trained, usually the statistics are for people like you and me are working against us because the most well trained have seen a lot of stroke patients, and they all, or the majority of them, look a certain way,
Yeah.
and they've got to overcome their bias of what a stroke patient looks like, and they've got to go, this could also look like a stroke patient, and we have to do something about it. But I get the whole children thing and the I've got to get to work thing and all that because they're the
Yeah.
stories that I played. I played the, well, I've got to go to work and I've got all my
They just run
employees.
through like
Yeah,
all of it in a
yeah,
flash.
yeah. And I don't feel like I'm on the edge of death. I just feel like I'm a little bit unwell
Yeah.
because when I measure the level of unwell feelings, they're not, my feelings weren't worse than a headache. I didn't have symptoms that were worse than a headache
Yeah.
or that made me feel like I couldn't breathe or I couldn't walk or I didn't have energy. I had none of that stuff. I just had numbness, just left side strange
Yeah.
numbness. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Mine was my left side.
yeah. So it's like, oh, okay. I suppose it's serious. There is a bleed in there. There is something going on, but I'm also looking in the mirror going, hey, you look great. Don't worry
Yeah,
about
you
it.
do.
Yeah.
You're comparing what you I was on a bay with like six of the ladies, and they were all. The lady next to me was wonderful. The stories she could tell, she was in her 80s.
Mm,
Um, but I couldn't have visitors. There was no visiting allowed because it
mm.
was locked down, and it was just really to take it all in. There was scan after scan, and then they're asking questions that even I think they must have been a bit shocked that I'd been walking around for 6 months like this.
Hmm.
Um, and after, when you know what it is, you replay it again, thinking, I've driven my car with my children in it. I could have killed myself, could have killed, all of those things.
Everything. I did exactly the same thing.
Everything, yeah,
But you're the record holder. 6 months
yeah.
undiagnosed after a stroke is the record. I've never heard of anyone that went that
Oh,
long. And it's so good that we're
it
still
won't
here.
without trying.
Yeah. It's so good that we're still talking about it. Um, and what's what I wanted to touch on was what you mentioned a little earlier. You said you had a daughter who died of a brain tumor.
I did, yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was back in 2005. Um, so her name was Yasmin, and that just came out of the blue as well. So we'd gone strawberry picking, and she was a bit stumbly on her feet. But we were a week back from holiday, and she was complaining of her neck hurting a bit. So I'd made an appointment. This was the Sunday. It was literally a week after we got back the Monday. I took her to see my GP, and it was instant. Things seem so much slower now.
Mm.
My GP back then, he retired, but she was there minutes. He was like, "Close your eyes," and she started swaying, and that was it. He was on the phone. So he was like, "This is her head. It's serious. We need to get to hospital." Yeah, and it turned out to be the tumor was wrapped around her brainstem.
Right.
Um, it's Nobody's ever survived it. It's rare, and that was nearly 6 months of you chase a miracle, of course you do, because you're a parent, it's your
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Um, but and you had the trips to Disneyland and all of that. That was where the mirror from finding out about stroke and her illness, and I've got older children, so my older children back when she was poorly were like 7, 4, and 2. Um, and I had children at home back then. I mean, how old were Esme? What we going on? It's like so long ago, isn't it? 3 years. So she would have been 13, Esme, and then the younger girls would have been. 6 and 3, 2, 4, 6 and 4. So like we're on video like now, they were video calling me in hospital. But you know that part of you that's thinking, I need to get home. What if I don't get home? How can they? I watched my older children grieve. And I say that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
They grieved their sister.
Yeah, a grieving child. That I can see it from a perspective of a parent losing a child, but when you're a child and your sister's gone and they can't figure out why, or you have to relive that over and over. Why, what's happened? Why she's not here? It was a complete. Although it was me this time, it was like a mirror of that. My children can't grieve me. I didn't want that. That was, but yeah, it was awful.
Did you
That was
inform
awful.
them that you also had a brain issue?
So my older children, I've got Lydia was at home then. She's in uni now, but she was 16 at the time, and for her and Esme, who was 13, I knew that they would be Googling.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Because even I'd not got to, even all those 6 months of Google, I didn't come to it being stroke. And even getting that diagnosis, it was like, oh, we know what it is now, we can fix it. Totally oblivious to the journey that was to come.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they can fix the underlying cause, or they can put you decrease the risk of another one happening through medication, intervention, or whatever. But they can't tell you how to live with a stroke brain.
And that's still part of life 3 years later. So my strokes were caused by my right vertebral artery having a dissection in it. Even that, right? So they come and they tell you, oh, you've got a tear in your artery. And you think, okay. So you're Googling again, because they don't tell you enough. Do they just tell you a little snippet?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it's just a little one. It can only be little. And they said, oh, we'll give you some medication. Usually takes 6 months to heal. I had a scan 12 months after I was diagnosed, and it showed like slight improvement. And this tear is from vertebrae C5 to my skull. So the neurologist was like, yeah, it's a big one. So near enough the length of my neck.
That's huge. I've never heard of a tear that long before.
Huge. I was like, oh, that, but I didn't know that for a year. So, and I'm on medication for the rest of my life now. So I was like, oh, well, do we scan it again? He was like, it'll make no difference. Okay. So we just go with it.
Okay, because of the length of it, they can't probably coil it.
No, and I think when you're younger, they try not to, if they can, put something in there, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they risk causing more strokes
Damage.
or
Yeah.
damage. Yeah,
How old are you?
41 now.
Okay.
So they said when I got my scans were taken on the 11th of January of 21. And he said I had a recent stroke, meaning that would have been in the last 4 weeks. And then there was evidence of other strokes, but they can't tell me when they took place, if it was all at once, so like lots of little clots going off, or they just kept popping in.
The blood flow in your artery would be slightly altered, just enough so that instead of the blood running beautifully through the tube of the artery,
Yeah.
it just changes the flow a little, and that flow change just causes clots, and then
Yeah.
they go up. As the blood flows up, they go up. And the blood thinners would help minimize the possibility that a clot will A, occur, and B, will get lodged somewhere, right? So it seems like a decent intervention, and then
Yeah,
hopefully
it
at the
does.
same time, the blood vessel starts to sort of retract and heal and and um and become recover from its tear.
You wonder if I wonder if because it was left so long, that's why it's taking longer to heal back.
That's a decent thing to wonder, I
Yeah.
think. I think that's a decent thing to wonder. What's interesting is that you're you're appearing very functional. What has it left you with? Are there deficits that are visible? And tell me about the ones that are not visible.
So when I went, if we go back to those 6 months, and I was noticing things like dizziness. I used to run and that back then. I was really active. And rushing around like a normal mum does. I had 4 girls at home at the time. I forgot what the question was. Oh, deficits.
Yeah.
I'm always got bruises on my legs. I bump into things a lot. So I would then concentrate on what I was bumping on my right side to try and avoid. I used to get like lots of bruises on my arms here, like on my forearms, that you just wouldn't normally hit yourself there. And I later figured out when I was concentrating on why, it was door handles. I would bump my arm a lot on door handles. So when I started to focus on this side, I start bumping this side. I fall. I still fall now. I had a fall 2 days ago down the stairs. I fell just after Christmas. I don't cook alone because it's not safe. I set things on fire, melt things to the cooker. Not a lot of it can be attention as well as there's a lot going on. So when they do these little cognitive tests, I've had lots of those. When you're in a room on your own with just one person asking you to do a task, you can give it your full attention, providing you're not fatigued. But put me in the kitchen with kids coming in and asking when the tea's ready or anything else, and the task of making sure everything is getting cooked, it just goes to pot.
Yeah.
I don't leave the house alone. The furthest I go is to put my younger children on a school bus just outside the house, and then back in, because I suffer badly with visual vertigo. So anything moving makes me feel like I'm moving. The wind is the worst because it's not just trees and everything, it's the noise. It really disorientates me. So when it was back before I'd been diagnosed and things were really full on, my life felt a bit like I was in a simulator. You know, when you sit in them things and there's just a screen, but you feel like you're on that roller coaster and you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is how it is a lot, and fatigue makes that worse. School holidays are difficult because there's not enough time for mummy to have a nap, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that first year, I tried my hardest because now I knew what was wrong. And I really am a positive person. After like Yasmin had died and things, I've always seen the gratitude in the fact that I had that opportunity to be her mum. And I was battling every month. There was more tests, there was more appointments, and I kept crashing. Every time I was trying to juggle all those balls that I used to juggle, down I would go. And it was awful. It was like the worst hangover while you're still awake,
Mm.
and you've not even had a drink. And then it's learning that self-compassion and learning to adjust to who you are now. Yeah.
It's where you have to everything gets challenged, all your beliefs, all your thoughts, all your ideas, all your preconceived ideas, all your expectations, everything gets challenged because this stroke is making you feel, I call it out of this world, spaced out,
Yeah.
the biggest trip I've ever had. I don't know how to explain it to people, but those days of being in another universe, I don't know what it was. I couldn't explain it. Like being that tripped out and spaced out, and then not and trying to bring myself back to reality. It challenged every single belief and thought and idea that I ever had in my life. And while you're dealing with recovery, and then all these things are being challenged all at the same exact time, and you're trying to navigate relationships, and you're trying to keep all the rest of the family calm, because we're a Greek family, and it's chaos when you tell a Greek parent that there's something wrong with you. It's just insane. And then you're managing them, and then it's like, hang on, I'm supposed to be recovering and healing. I'm not supposed to be doing all this other shit, trying to work out
Yes.
what the fuck is going on in my life, as well as managing all of you people, as well as trying
Yeah.
to get people to school, as trying to get people to work, to do work. I'm just supposed to be recovering like people recover from a broken foot or toe or
Absolutely that. Yeah. Because there's no physical. I was gone for 9 days when so Dean had just come home, but he'd had an ACL like on his knee done.
Mm.
I missed all of that 9 days, so I was all prepared. At the time I was like, oh, it couldn't have been any worse timing because obviously he'd come home and he needed the attention and all of that, and I was gone. I was whisked away. But after, I thought it was perfect timing because we were in lockdown, so there was no school or anything like that. My biggest thing back then was my eldest daughter was only 16 and she was doing what I would do. She had to, because of Dean being laid up, she had to take on my role, and I didn't know when I was getting out of there. Every day I was asking, can I go home? And I was seeing people that looked really poorly leaving um, there was a lady die, and that was awful. They put her in a, shut the curtains around, and you could hear her till her last breath in the middle of the night with all this commotion. And that really made it real.
Mm.
This is serious. And you have to accept that you'll go home when you're ready, when they say you're safe enough, you're leaving. But for Dean had big bandages and he had crutches, and everybody could see, oh, he looks really like he's not in a good way. And my head's like whirling around. Like you said, like you're in that spaced out, but nobody can see that. The only time they saw things was I started to make mistakes. Like, this was I poured lemonade all over my dinner plate rather than in my cup. And then I was making mistakes like in the morning making cereal for the girls, pouring hot water on the cereal instead of in my mug. So now everything is like, if they sit on the side, it's moved. And whatever task is going on, if it's a bowl of cereal, that's it. That's the only thing in front of me. But yeah, they're looking normal, so to speak, but you're not. And like you said, you do need, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm tired," and you think, "No, you don't know what tired is."
Yeah, it is an interesting thing that people try and do. When I would say I'm tired, and then they say, "Oh, yeah, I'm tired too."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not a competition. I'm not trying to compete with your
Yeah.
level of tiredness. I'm just trying to communicate how I cannot do anything at all. I'm
Yeah. Just
dead.
turn off, don't you?
Yeah, the switch is off and I cannot move. I cannot comprehend. I cannot process. I cannot think. I cannot hardly speak. It is really difficult to kind of iterate to people your experience so that they can give you a break and get off your back or be calm or gentle or whatever. I don't know. It's so weird. Your husband, your partner, is
Yeah.
he your husband?
Husband, yeah.
Your husband, so he's got 9 days of you at hospital while his knee's getting better. And when you get home, is he back on his feet? How long does that kind of surgery take to recover?
He was then able to get around on his crutches. But so while I was in hospital, obviously when he wanted to get a shower and things like that, or bedtime, Lydia would make sure he was in bed, and then she would turn the light off and shut the door for him. Like your job's to put your children to bed, and there she was putting her dad to bed. Yeah, they were managing though, and you see people differently. There were people that I'd met once through somebody else that were sending lasagna from another town, like from in the town to us. People were offering to do ironing, and it was just that side of things was really beautiful. But there was obviously people that you thought you could rely on and you couldn't.
The blessing of those weirdos that just turn up out of nowhere that you don't expect
Yeah,
is such a brilliant thing. And I thought it was just me, but it's repeated. There's so many people who tell me the same thing. And then for me, those amazing people that just turned up and did stuff and helped out when I really needed them, they all then also all kind of just disappeared as well.
yeah.
And it was like,
They didn't want anything for it. They
yeah,
just
what do
did
you
it.
mean? Yeah, you just turned up and you did stuff and now you're going back to business as usual. And it's like, that's weird. And then the other people are kind of still not really back, the ones that you thought were going to be
Yeah,
around, they're still not really back. And that's a real interesting blessing and it's unexpected and it's really lovely that it happens, because I've
Yeah.
heard it so much. And without them, honestly, I don't know what I would have done. I think they kind of eased the suffering a little bit. They eased the pain and the challenges and all that sort of stuff. And it was such a blessing to have them around. It was really cool.
Even
Now,
people from afar were sending, there was message, because I'd done all that big shop ready for Dean with his knee,
mhm.
but they'd run out of shampoo or something like that. So my friend that lives in St Helens sent a package with like shampoo and conditioner, and obviously lots of other little treats. But it was just a really lovely way of seeing those people that really care, even if you don't know them.
Yeah, that's such a good gesture. Shampoo, like little things.
Yeah, yeah, little things.
Useful.
Mm.
Yeah. Hey, your balance issues and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you do rehab? Are you going through a process of trying to improve that stuff?
I did. So for the time after, I was given you all of a sudden have all these different the therapists, don't you? So you've got one like a physio, and then you've got another one that's you like your OT, and all, so they all come in and they were all doing lots of things, but they were all very hesitant to go beyond a certain point because of my neck.
Uh-huh.
So they and obviously at this time I didn't know back then how long that tear was, or the repercussions and all of that. So we did things like moving your eyes, moving your head. They would throw me off. And they said, "Oh, once we get the go ahead, these things get more intense, can make you sick." But it never got there because they just weren't willing to take that risk. So I have to do things like I watch disco balls and the trees from a safe space. So sit on a chair and watch the trees move in. Or I went to the beach and I didn't realise until I got to the beach the waves. Oh God, man, waves.
They mess with you.
Watching the water move. It was like I had to sit down before I fell down. Yeah, you don't realise how much that balancing can just throw off. Um, turning right. So in the kitchen, my cooker's one side, and then I line the plates up the other behind me on another worktop. So if I turn right, I don't get as dizzy, but if I go left, it's like whoa. It's almost like I've been spun round numerous times rather than just turning like what is it, 180? Yeah. Um, yeah, so I've learned to adapt in lots of ways, but it's like learning to walk again, and I didn't have to learn to walk again, but it was easier to turn left because it was quicker than going right because you're going right. We did lots of things with my hands, for sensation, played with balls, got given lots of toys to play with. Which made it fun because I could involve the children with things like rolling balls or catching bean bags and things like that. I'd walk up and down the kitchen, turning my head, involving them in the garden, to try and almost like re-center myself. But nothing seems to. If I've been the busier I have been, the dizzier I am.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So the more tired you are and your brain is, the more obvious the deficits are.
Yeah. And it's learning to go from that busy, full-on person to because to begin with, I felt lazy.
Of course you
It
did.
felt lazy. It felt lazy to have a nap
Yeah. Yeah.
because you put your baby down for a nap, you don't go for a nap yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that took a lot of self-compassion, a lot of therapy to realize that my needs have changed, and if I don't have that nap, I'll pay for it later.
Yeah. I went through that for a long time as well, and then felt bad about going and napping. And then at one point, I was working in an office. One of those angel people rocked up and said, "There's a job for you
Mm.
in an office. You don't have to do anything to get this job. Basically, you've got the job. If you turn up to an interview, a fake interview, you know, we'll go through the motions and you'll have a job." And I was like, great, because I needed one to get me back in the swing of things and to get my brain retrained or recalibrated to working 8-hour days and traveling and being around people and all that. And it was really difficult at the beginning. So I used to duck out and go to the car in the car park and just have a sleep in the car. And it would really help. It would really make a difference
Yeah,
to calming things
I want to.
down. Give me like a little bit of a energy boost. But when I was supposed to be productive doing something, say for example at home, when you're supposed to be, I don't know, preparing a meal or cutting the grass or vacuuming or mopping or something, like it made me feel like, oh my God, there's all these things to do, and look at me, I'm resting and sleeping and doing nothing, and
Yeah,
that I shouldn't be doing nothing. I should be doing something. And I always, but then I need to rest, because if I don't rest, then I'll be terrible at the end of the day. And then if I'm terrible at the end of the day and I don't sleep well, and I used to just drive myself bonkers trying to
yeah,
get myself to just rest, just settle down and rest, sleep. That was it. It was such an impossible task to convince myself that less is more, and you have to do less to get more out of the day.
mm. Learning that battery thing is a real part of who you are now.
Mm.
And if you've got 60%, you've got 60% that day. You're not going to gain any more. You're just going to try and learning that was really difficult. That first year was what made that battle hard, because you're trying to you look okay and everybody sees you as okay, and you're trying to be the person you were before. But the crashes and all of that. And by the end of that year, that was when it really hit my mental health. While I was in hospital, I was asked, did I want like some that sort of therapy, and I was like, because I'd been made to feel for those 6 months like I was imaginary, imagining these things. I was like, there's nothing. You told me to come here. I didn't. I ain't come to waste your time. But therapy, it should have been from the beginning. I know that now. Um, and here in the UK, people don't really have a therapist. And I listen to lots of podcasts, not just yours, but like just know like about anything. And a lot of Americans and that they've all got a therapist, and I think we should.
Bloody
We
oath
as
you
a
should.
country are so behind.
Are you in Wales?
No, I'm Lincolnshire.
Okay. Well, yeah, you should have. Everyone should. And why? Because I think if it wasn't for the therapy that I had before the stroke for about 8 or 9 years, if it wasn't for that, I think I would have been a terrible stroke survivor. I would have been
Yeah.
shocking. Because what I had done was I had dealt with a lot of my shit before the strokes. So when I was recovering from the stroke, not from all the other stuff that I dragged with me to stroke recovery. And
I took it all.
yeah, and I understand that people do that because you're unaware. What you don't know, right? So when I went to therapy, we had lost my my sister-in-law's husband had passed away at 31 from a rare cancer, and it was a liver cancer. It had, similar to what you said about your daughter, it had enveloped his liver, and there was untreatable. They couldn't do anything. It was like a flat, thin layer of something that had enveloped his liver, and it shut it down. And when he passed away, that was the first person I'd ever known who passed away. And I was really not well. And I was trying to come to terms with it all. So I went and saw a therapist. And I could tell you that for the first year or two, I was there most months, at least once or twice a month. And then it started to settle down. Then I would go intermittently. And then what was really cool was when my kids were born, my first was born in 1996. My second was born in 2000. This all happened in around 1999 when my kids were sort of getting older and I was struggling with being a dad and the usual stuff. I was 22 years old when I was a dad for the first time, right? So I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I would take the kids with me. And
Right.
they didn't know that we were going to therapy. All they knew was we were going to see Patricia.
Yeah.
And Patricia was a lady who was my parents' age, and she was just she became my confidant. She became my the person I went to for wisdom, for guidance, for counsel, for everything. And it had evolved from I'm going there for you to fix me or to tell me what's wrong with me. It had become this whole like maternal thing that was happening, even though my mum's around and my dad's around. It was good to outsource some of those things because they don't have the skills and the resources to support me in certain things. They couldn't do it, and expecting them to do it wasn't going to work. So, and also, I don't like expecting my wife to have all the solutions for me and all the answers to all what ails me. Like it's not possible for her to play every single role in my life that I need. It's not possible. You have to outsource some of those tasks to people who are actually trained in those areas. So we'd go with the children, and we would talk about their little problems, and they would just think they're chatting, and that led to me being able to get them to go to therapy later on in life when they have dramas and problems without it being a problem, because now they're so used to the process. Every time they don't want to burden us or they don't want to discuss something with us at the depth that they need it discussed, they go and see a therapist. Now, my oldest is now 27 and the youngest is 23. And we've developed that whole idea that therapy is just part of life. It's not something you do when things are terrible or when things get bad or something terrible happens. It's just something that you do. You just go. And that's how I do it. I just go. And that just going means that nothing doesn't ever get acknowledged or dealt with or sorted or worked on. And it releases a whole bunch of burdens, it gets all the burdens off your back. And then
it doesn't grow to a point of where do you begin?
It doesn't snowball.
the right way. I wish it was like that here.
Yeah, it doesn't snowball. And then you're not dealing with a massive snowball, you're dealing with little bits of snowflakes, and they're easier to resolve and they go away. So when you get to a serious life issue like stroke, all you have to do is deal with the stroke. When I'm coaching stroke survivors, I told one of my stroke survivors who I coach yesterday, I told this to her yesterday. Most of the people who I'm coaching think that they're getting stroke recovery coaching. They're not getting any of that. What they're getting is support to deal with all the shit that's getting in the way of them dealing with their recovery. That's all it is.
Yeah,
And,
it's so true.
you know, and I understand that people get you. How many kids are there in total with Yasmin? 5?
7.
7, right? And it makes sense that mums or dads or parents or people with 9 people in their family are going to have less time for that kind of thing. But
They were so there's a big gap between. So my youngest she's just turned 7. She's Christmas Day baby. Anything that's going to happens to me. So she was born on Christmas Day. She's 7, and my eldest is nearly 26. So there's a big, but you put them all together and they're just not just normal siblings, you know.
yeah, I thought I started
Which
there.
is lovely. Yeah, well, I was a teen mum. But because the older ones had gone through what they'd gone through with Yasmin, it was never not spoken about. So although we didn't have a therapist and I didn't take them to therapy,
Yeah,
Callum,
of course.
the eldest, he did speak to somebody within his school setting. But as a family, it's so open. She's spoken about nearly every day. Birthdays, we have a birthday cake and they all make a wish, you know, because I didn't want it to become something we couldn't talk about.
Yeah,
And now my younger children are beginning to ask questions. They watch a program, it's like an American thing. But there's a girl in it that's got cancer. And they've watched it for a while. And as a parent, you know it's fun and you know it's safe, and you see little bits of it. And this girl, her hair kept changing because she had wigs. So that's when I realised this girl had cancer. So I said, "Oh, is this girl poorly?" And A was like, "Yeah, she's got cancer, mummy." And she asked why she had no hair, why she had to wear a wig. So I went through the chemotherapy thing, and then we get questions like, "Did Yasmin's hair all fall out?" And it's never. They don't think, "Oh, I can't ask that because I'll upset mummy." They just ask, and I get random questions off all of them. But that's lovely that they can do that. And with my stroke, there was nothing was hidden. And then following after that battle to regain back to who I was, I speak about that. We should speak about our mental health.
absolutely.
Going through COVID, we're very lucky because where we live, we've got a really big garden. We were really fortunate in that respect then. And that's what we did. We played. It was just like one big summer holiday. The younger ones were oblivious to what was really going on. COVID was a big thing because everybody got a snapshot of what my life's like now. And everybody knew what it was like to the world shut down kind of thing. But when the world reopened, I'm still here.
Yeah.
That was difficult because people then just got on with their lives, and you're watching it almost through a window. I remember when Yasmin was poorly, and I was looking out of a hospital window, and people were on the way to work or university, and there's buses. And I was like, they've got no idea. Look at them just going about normal life. Not that they should think, oh, there's Rapunzel's up there, you know, but it just makes you, it makes you realise. But what it did for me, I went from feeling trapped because I was at home, and through therapy and all of that, now I feel free. I don't have to be somewhere
Mm-hmm.
or fit in a million things into my day. You know, like because in a way that's trapped, having to fit everything in and
Mm-hmm.
running by when you've got loads of kids and you've got to be here, there, and everywhere, and tea and all of that. Not that I felt trapped then, you know. I love being a mum.
Yeah, no.
But
But what you've found now is you've found space that you can
yeah, for me,
hang out in. Yeah.
yeah.
I found that when the kids were at school and my wife went back to work after I was sick, because I was for about 3 years on and off, I was in and out of
Yeah.
work and hospital and everything. And then I found that when they were it was like bliss time. They were at work and at school, and it's like, oh
Heaven.
man, I get to be myself and chill out and learn things and discover things and research things and all that kind of stuff. And it was really the most time I've ever spent in my own space, you know, being
Yeah.
productive by doing nothing, or, you know, because I did learn how to do nothing, but it took a while for me to get there. And when I
Yeah.
got there, it was like, wow, like I've really managed to do nothing all day today and I feel really good, you know? But it wasn't nothing. It was, you know, it was something, because
Mm.
I was actively doing nothing.
Yeah, and I would sit like I watched loads of different podcasts on people, famous people, and then things like this, and um, the knowledge I've gained from that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The hours, the amount of hours and I mean, I fall asleep to them as well, and wake up to a different one. But yeah, the things I've learned, and some of them I'll watch them again because I found it that interesting and
Mm.
feel like I didn't take enough of it in that I want to listen again. Um, but there's silence, not having because I get totally overwhelmed by
Mm.
someone's on a game on the phone and then there's TV on and mummy, 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 lighting. It's all too much. And I will say, I cannot cope. And I really just, that situation sometimes is just too much. So a Monday is my favourite because everybody goes back to school and to work. And I get to just have no noise. The noise that I choose that's it.
Early on in the podcast, I interviewed Antonio Ianella, and I think it was before episode 30, somewhere there. And Antonio had a massive stroke while he was overseas. It was due to an AVM, similar condition to me. And he was away from home in Vietnam, I think. And when he had the stroke, they've come back, he's being treated, but his relationship broke down. And it was on the way to being broken down, but the stroke kind of ended it quicker. And then when they were working out custody of the children, you know, you'd think that as a father, well, the instinct is, you know, to have your kids as often as possible. And
Yeah.
same with the mum, right? Makes sense. But he had this little strange little blessing that came out of not having custody of the kids for half the week, which was that he could
Yeah.
recharge his batteries And he said that when he was then with them, he could really be with them, even though he was
Yeah.
messed up because of the stroke, right? And that was a real cool thing that he discovered that was a benefit to the uh, separation that he didn't think that would be the case. Um, it's been a long time since his strokes, and he's much better than he was. But it was time that he needed to himself. And if he was
Yeah.
still married, if he was still
To
married,
be able to function later on.
yeah, the kids would have been in his
Yeah.
space all the time, which would have been normal because they were little at the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it does make you need that self time.
yeah.
And before, I think I was finding things to do all the time that I didn't really need to do. Um, just because I could,
Mm.
because I could drive and do a bit of shopping, and now I don't. There's no there's no even desire a lot of the time. I think, yeah, I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered. Not that I can't be bothered. I can't. There's been situations where I've ended up in the shopping centre, not on my own, with somebody, and it's too much because I wasn't prepared for it. You're thrown into all that hustle, bustle, noise,
Mm.
that overwhelm, and I just think I just want to be at home. I don't have to deal with this anymore.
I remember going
People,
to the,
people just rushing around, grumpy.
yeah, yeah, I know it's too much. I remember first being out of hospital, I think it would have been maybe a couple of weeks or months after my brain surgery. And I felt like everyone was bumping into me. And I never
Mm.
noticed that before. And it's like, why is everyone bumping into me? Now, it could have been because I was bumping into them too, right? Because I couldn't feel my left side. My balance is a little bit out of whack, and I wasn't judging them properly, and I was leaning into them or something. I don't know what, and that was a little bit disconcerting. I said, well, the last thing I need is to fall over and hit myself now, stop bumping into me. So that made it difficult for me to be at the local shopping center or shopping mall. And then I went one time and I parked the car. And then I forgot where I parked the car and I couldn't find the car. And I just kept walking around
No.
to try and find the car. I had no idea. And you know when when you forget something and then you say, I'll think of it in a minute. There was
Yeah.
no thinking of it in a minute. I knew I couldn't think of it in a minute. I knew it was
Yeah.
not going to come back. I had just had to keep walking around until I walked through all the particular car spaces and then came across my car. Now it's not a massive place. So but then I wasn't panicking and I knew that I eventually would find it and I would be able to walk home, worst case scenario. It wasn't that far
Yeah.
away. It's about 2 or 3 kilometers away. And then I just couldn't find the car. I had zero, like memory or storage of that. And it's like, this is all too hard. I think I'd rather just be at home.
You
And
know, when you do things like that, where people will go to me, oh, I forget things all the time. And I think you don't understand. You
you don't
don't.
forget things all the time
No.
like me. Yeah, I know.
Or like the tired thing, or they
Yeah.
go to me, oh yeah, I feel like that. And I think, oh, I wish you could just have a day of it and just and it's that these people are lovely and then
They are.
they have the company.
They're oblivious and they should be
Yeah,
oblivious. They should be.
yeah, they
And
should,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, and it's okay.
It's
It's
nice.
okay that they are. But it is a bit, I don't know, it's annoying. I remember tripping over, walking up the stairs one day with my cousin nearby. And she said, oh, don't worry about it. I trip over all the time. Yeah, I know. But my leg didn't know that it wasn't high enough to step on the step. That's why I
Yeah.
tripped. It's not because I was being, my mind was elsewhere, or I wasn't paying attention or whatever. It's because my leg didn't lift itself up far enough to get the next step. That's why I've fallen.
Yeah.
And I know you're trying to make it better, but yeah, it's because of my stroke brain that it happened. And it's okay that it happened, actually. It doesn't matter that it happened, and you don't have to make it better. But I appreciate you trying to make it better for me so I don't feel bad about falling over or embarrassed or something. I'm not embarrassed.
And
It's
we
just,
get used to it. We're used to it now, aren't we? It's just, and it becomes like something comical. You just you giggle it off.
yeah,
Even my girls now just giggle off when I do something silly.
yeah.
Um,
I woke up
and then we
last
look
night.
at each other like that.
I woke up last
Yeah.
night thirsty and I needed to get a drink. So getting out of bed, I have to focus on walking properly in the middle of the night when I'm half asleep.
Darkness is a nightmare.
It's weird. And, it happens every single day. When I wake up in the morning, my leg takes a bit longer to get up, than I have. And in the middle of the night, when I am half asleep and I'm just thirsty and I need to just get a drink of water and I can hardly see in front of me, I got to make sure that I'm not falling over. Just
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. It is okay, isn't it? We're here. That's what we have to that's what I think a lot. We are the lucky ones that we get to tell our stories because
I think so.
we made it through.
I think so. On episode 200, I interviewed Cheryl Schultz. I don't know if you've been through my back catalogue too far, but
I won't remember them by number.
yeah, Cheryl is not a stroke survivor, but she had her inner ear damaged because of some medication when she was unwell many years ago, and she wasn't able to walk or move or do anything for many years because she had constant vertigo. No matter what she was doing, her world was spinning. Anyhow,
Yeah.
she got to the point where she bumped into this amazing neuroscientist who developed a device that they put it on her tongue, and
Oh
with
wow.
with a gyroscope on her head, every time she moved, the gyroscope would measure the movement backwards, forwards, left, and right, and it would zap her tongue. And if she was standing straight, it would not zap her tongue, and then if she moved back, it would zap her tongue to the back. If she moved forward, it would zap her to the forward, left, and right. And with that device, she learned how to, she got her balance back and her vertigo went away.
Wow.
So what I would suggest is go back to the back catalogue, recoveryafterstroke.com
Yeah.
slash episodes, and then just scroll down the numbers. You'll see 200. Have a listen to that, because with people who have balance issues, cerebellar balance issues, may benefit from the device that's still available. You can still purchase a device like that from some guys in America that Cheryl worked with 20 years ago to develop this first prototype. She's a neuroplasticity sensation, that lady, because they knowingly retrained her tongue to take over the task of her inner ear.
That's so clever.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of hope there for people who have balance issues after stroke. My balance
Yeah.
issues are related to me not being able to feel my leg, so that's a bit different. But when the cerebellum's been injured or the inner ear's been injured, that's different to sensory. I have sensory issues, and that's not related to my inner ear or my balance, my cerebellum. It's related to my sense, to me feeling my foot properly and it telling the brain that it is on the ground. That's the challenge that I have. But for some others, that episode might be interesting, worth checking out, having a listen to. And if it's not applicable to you, it's a bloody amazing story.
Hmm. I had the odd time when before I'd been diagnosed, I would get to the stairs ready to walk up the stairs, and I would just stand there because my feet didn't know what they were doing next. All those instinctive things that you learn from being a tiny tot, and you've just done your whole life. And I would be like, why won't my leg just, that's something you literally get to the stairs, you run up them, don't you? And I just could not, from here to there, was not having any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an issue that I still have now. That urge to go to the toilet for a wee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get there and sit on the toilet. I don't know if this is relevant. I bet there's people that also have this. And I'll sit there and I just can't have a wee. It's like my brain's it's just not gonna. So I'll get up again and wait, because it's not gonna work until it wants to.
Weird.
Those were little things that were puzzling. Whereas bumping into the door or feeling dizzy and sick, and I could find a reason for what they were.
Yeah, no, you
But,
can't. Well, now you kind of have a reason, but you don't have a explanation, maybe.
no,
Yeah. You know why it's not working,
you
because my
can't
brain's
explain it to
messed up,
yourself.
but I can't explain it. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Hey, what's the hardest thing about stroke?
That's a tough one. I think for me the hardest part was the long road to getting a diagnosis. That was my biggest battle. And then the decline in my mental health. However, I do believe I had to fall apart to find myself,
Mm-hmm.
and then go from that. The most difficult bit was that it was so post Yasmin dying, I fought with everything I had to become strong and independent and rebuild life. I always say that with her. It was like I lost her twice, because I lost her to her illness, then I lost her to death. And it's like having two lives, because my older children are to somebody else. So I've moved here, I've built a new life and all of that, and then this happened, and it was like crash. It was like 15 years gone back in time. But finding yourself in other ways to be like the freedom of silence, of not having to do all those millions of things. So I don't really. The hardest part is probably, for me as a person, I like to micromanage things.
Mm-hmm. That's over.
Like having Esme making the cookies while the ambulance is coming to distract her. I'm constantly thinking of the impact it's going to have on other people before I'm thinking of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But from that difficult bit of it, I've learned that I'm just as important as them, and mums are allowed to be poorly.
Yeah, and you are important just because, and also you need to be well because you've got 8 other people that need you to be well.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Yasmin needs you to be well. The rest of the kids need you to be well. Your husband needs you to be well. And that's just them. We're not talking about everyone else.
Yeah.
But your direct family that's one of the things I try to explain to people who are caring for stroke survivors is you have to look after yourself because we can't have two people unwell at the same
Absolutely,
time.
yeah.
There's no point in that. You've got to be well. So look after yourself. Take the time out. Leave the stroke survivor in the corner, curled over, bawling their eyes out, whatever the hell they have to do. Just leave them in the corner.
Oh, emotions, yeah.
Yeah, it won't harm them more than the stroke has. Just go
No.
do your thing for 10 minutes and just get a breather. You know, whatever you have to do, it's really important. What about what has stroke taught you, do you think?
It's taught me that, well, it taught me that I have to take care of me a bit more.
Mhm.
That finding different ways to, prior to stroke, I would go for a run to relieve some stress or something like that. Now I'm a bit more confined. That can be difficult in that I can't just, oh, I'm going for a walk, I've had enough.
Yeah.
So I find those 5 minutes peace in the day. It's taught me that life's precious. Life's precious. And it also taught me you don't give up the fight. You listen to your body. You believe in what you know is wrong. And if you need to change doctor, you change doctor.
Yeah,
And you keep fighting for the answer.
that's a really important one.
Instinct is a big, that gut instinct. You know, I
Listening.
knew there was something wrong. I knew, and I didn't want, when I sat with that nurse, I said to him, look, my daughter died from a brain tumour. I'm not saying I've got a brain tumour. And I was crying. I said, but there's something wrong. And I just want to be well. I don't want to be ill. I'm not here to be ill and, like, look at me, I'm poorly. I want to be well. So don't give up that fight. And I say that all the time, even with when I took Yasmin and that morning that I took her, she'd bumped into the fridge. Now I know from being a migraine sufferer, when I've got a migraine, I would make them bumps. And everyone was saying, oh, she'll just have an ear infection. You've been on the plane. And my gut instinct then was like, there's so much more to this. But even in like that death of a child, stroke, you've got to choose happy, haven't you? Getting older is a privilege. I'm so privileged and so grateful to still be here.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want to tell other people who are listening going through a similar thing that you're going through?
Not to give up. You never give up, and never. I got to the point where I was feeling suicidal because I felt like a burden. I felt like I can't leave my house. Having cook tea for my children, but they're cooking it with me because they're watching me cook their tea. That sort of thing. Therapy, huge. Like you said about who you went to talk to, Emily became like that friend. That 2 years of therapy, and we talked about everything. Because once I'd hit that end of that first year, it felt like this box just burst open, and it was like I could not shove anything more down. The tears were uncontrollable. That again, just ask for help. You know, I laid in bed that Christmas Eve and I said to Dean, "What's the point in me being?" You know, like, and I know there was a point, and my children are the reason I'm still here, obviously. But there's no shame in that. There's no shame in feeling that way, and there's always somebody that would rather you ring them, speak to them, than get that call that you've hurt yourself. when I left therapy, I finished therapy it was like towards the end of November. And that I was ready to leave. And you're leaving that friend, like when it feels like you've lost a friend in a way. Because Emily was part of the neuro psychology department. So because they were specialists for brain injury and stroke and things.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't get to see the next chapter.
No.
And that's that, and I wrote her a really lovely card, and I was just like, thanks for being that safe space, that safe adult, But yeah, I do think that. I think she don't get to see what happens next. And that even them, they want to see you go off and live your life, don't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned that my mental health was really important. I learned that self-compassion was really important. Naps. Take the nap. Why shouldn't you have a nap? Pajama days, right? When I think back and I think, you're not lazy. If you need a rest, you need a rest.
Yeah.
You won't make your baby stay up all day. You'd let it have a nap. And if you need a nap, it is literally a power nap.
Yeah.
You
Power.
wake up and you've got a bit more power to crack on and do a bit of tea or stay up an hour later so you can watch something together. And one day at a time.
Yeah. I know it's late where you are, so I'm going to try and get you off in a little bit, but I love our chat. Our chat's been awesome. I want to acknowledge Dean. Tell me about Dean.
Okay.
How's he doing? What's going on with him? Because he's a busy man.
Yeah.
And he's dealing with all this stuff and his wife, and he's unwell and loss and all that stuff. He's dealing with it all at the same time. How's he doing?
He's doing good. So post knee surgery, he decided he'd change job and he went off to be a postman. So now he's walking around on that leg like it's brand new. If I need a loaf of bread, I can this is great because I can just go, how can you pick this up? I don't have to go to the shop and get a loaf of bread. Yeah. Yeah, it was teamwork. It really was teamwork. And although siblings bicker and all of that, they're so good in that sort of situation, even in happy situations. But in that situation, they all looked after each other.
Mm.
And yeah, even that, like, looked after Dad, put him in bed, put the shower on for him. And everybody else's life is going on, and it's amazing to see them like start university, move to college, Dean get a new job. And I love that. I love that they're all still, and they don't mind if I'm at home having a nap. Which is really, really lovely. They don't they do acknowledge now that the biggest thing in my house, because of the balance, I've developed this ignorance to looking down, because looking down can really make me but there's still there's stuff everywhere. Like a shoe with we just put my bag there, and if I don't see it, like when I fell at Christmas, and I had left I've got a step out of my bedroom door, and then she'd left this new toy that was there that I put my foot on, and I thought, oh, I don't want to, what is that? And then I went over, and it's literally because your brain is not as quick at reacting to stop you falling.
Mm-hmm.
You just go down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just lay there, and they're like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, just give me 5 minutes. I'm fine." we just all learn to see each other's needs a bit more. And when you've got a teenager and they want to go sit in the bedroom, and you think, oh, they don't want to sit with me. My kids have all been different. Some of them are happy to sit in the room and watch a bit of telly, and then some of them are like, one of the boys would go sit on his games, or Esme will sit and talk to her friends, which is all fine. We all come together when we need to come together and share time together. But everybody should be allowed to just filter off and do their own little thing.
Mm.
And then we come back and we talk about. Dean can come home and complain about his day in the rain while I've been snuggled up with my electric blanket. And but it's all right. I mean, I don't really. I will say things like, Dean likes football. That men just, you put two men together and they instantly talk about football.
Yeah.
Never met each other before. So he's been to watch football tonight. There was a football match and he's been to the pub. I forgot what I was going to say about football. Oh, so when I listen to podcasts, I mean, I've listened to footballers' podcasts, sports people, that aren't of any interest to me. But when you listen to people's lives, they are interesting, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're interesting. We've got these stories that not a lot of people have. And not a lot of people have got out the other side, as in they might not have got beyond their stroke, or mental health took them down, But sharing it, I love that. In hospital, them old people, wow, I loved it.
Yeah. It is something about sharing it. People think I'm not going to tell people what my problem is, or I don't need to, whinge about my family life to people. And it's true, you don't need to whinge about it, but you do need to talk about it. And if you talk about it in a context where you're just giving a little bit of, you're giving yourself like a bit of like you're releasing some weight from the shoulders. Most people are prepared for you to do that without, looking at you strangely or whatever. Their life isn't any better or worse.
Yeah.
And that's what I found with the podcast is weird people will contact me and say, I want to be on your podcast, all right, like you. And then they'll say, oh, and by the way, I haven't spoken to anyone about my stroke for 10 years. And it's
Wow.
like, what are you on about? How can I be the first person and the rest of the planet? How can we be all the first people to hear about your stroke? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't talk about it before, and I feel like I need to now. So, there's a definite, to have a platform that enables people to just come on and talk
Yeah.
and have an intimate conversation with the whole planet. It's weird, but it is therapeutic, and that's what.
Even sharing on like social media and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did it, but after my stroke, when I got home, I was like, so my Instagram before my stroke was basically there was a bit of like slimming. Then I was getting married, like just normal, bit of body positivity and all of that. And I was desperate then to find other people like me that could show me what it's like on the other side. After this recovery part of it, what comes next? Do we get? Because I thought I was just going to miraculously get better. You need that. If nobody's sharing it,
Yeah.
what do you know is to come?
We're stuffed. Oh, now I'm going to say something that's going to sound a bit weird. What I like about you is you've had a lot of life experience. Now, what I don't like is the specific life experience that you've had. So, unfortunately, according to your Instagram, you're a survivor of two strokes, 37 and 38, child loss and abuse. Now, and at 40 odd, you've come through, you're talking in a way that feels empowering, supportive. It feels like there's a healing journey happening. It feels like you've learnt, you've overcome, you've recovered, you've done a whole bunch of things, and you're still going through all these challenges at the same time while you've done all those things.
Yeah.
And it's like as if somebody like you wouldn't be beneficial to others who are going through that and are early on in their recovery, to hear from, like, the other people who have been through what you've been through, who are very early on in the thing. They're going to need more than just their own skills to get through abuse, for example, because they never had to. They don't know how to do that. So it's bloody hard, as well as being in an abusive situation. Getting over it is also hard because you just don't have the skills. You've never trained for it. Same with stroke and same with child loss. You don't have those skills. And it's like, I need skills. Where do I get skills from?
It's complete
Hopefully,
survival mode.
yeah, hopefully somebody else will have gained those skills and they can impart them on me. And that's kind of what this is about. Like, this whole come on my podcast and tell me about what's happening for you. It's like, I want you to impart your skills on other people who are listening. And I know for a fact that that's making it better for you. And I know for a fact that it's making it better for them. And we can do that together. On our own, we can't do that. We can't do anything on our own. We need to do it together. That's really, really important, So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and reaching out, sharing your story, being so open. I'm not able to, like, completely understand what you've been through in your own way, but I relate to a lot of the things that you said, and that's something that I really appreciate. This is a therapy session for me as well, as
I find that,
yeah, I hope that it is for other people too.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. To get a copy of my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, go to Amazon and search my name, Bill Gassiamis. To learn more about my guests, including links to their social media and to download a transcript of the entire interview, go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. Thank you to everybody who has already left a review about the podcast. It really means the world to me. Podcasts live and thrive because of the reviews. And when you leave a review, you are also helping others in need of this type of content to find it easier. And that's making their stroke recovery just that little bit better. If you haven't left a review and would like to, the best way to do that is to go to iTunes and Spotify, leave a 5-star review and a few words about what the show means to you. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video. I respond to all the comments below the YouTube videos. Like the episode, because then, of course, that also helps YouTube to know that this episode is worth listening to. And to get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show and hit the notifications bell. If you're a stroke survivor with a story to share about your stroke experience, come and join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do is be a stroke survivor who wants to share their story in the hope that it will help somebody else going through something similar. If you're a researcher and you would like to share the findings of a recent study, or you're looking to recruit people into studies, you may also wish to reach out and be a guest on my show. If you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors recover, there is also a path for you to join me on a sponsored episode of the show. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the form explaining briefly which category you belong to, and I will respond with more details about how we can connect via Zoom. Thanks again for being here, listening, for interacting, for sending me amazing emails. I really appreciate you all. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.